Today we're going to talk about faith offerings. That is when people give us an offering because we're monastics, because they have faith in the Dharma, and so they see us as a representative of the Dharma and make offering to us in that way. So these offerings have to be used very, very carefully because they were given because of people's very deep faith and appreciation for the three jewels. And so they should not be used frivolously. We shouldn't go on vacation or, kind of just throw it around, because it was really given with because of people's sincere faith, which is to be respected and honored by us. And similarly, these kinds of offerings, for example, if people gave us offerings and requested us to do prayers for them or for a deceased relative or to do pujas, then we should definitely do those pujas and prayers because, again, the person is making offering and request at that same time. Now, you may wonder, well, wait a minute, that doesn't happen here. Well, first of all, in the Tibetan community, when people request prayers and when they request pujas, they usually make an offering to the monastery, or they come to the puja themselves and then they make offerings to the individual monastics. So Western people don't know that this is the custom to do. And so that's why they haven't done it here and why we haven't received those kinds of offerings. But that is the custom, and so hopefully one day the Western lay people, or the monastics, because also in the Tibetan community the monastics request pujas and prayers, then people will learn this, and because the idea being that if you give an offering, you're creating merit, and then then you can dedicate the merit from your offering and from the monastics' virtue, the merit that they created by doing the puja. Okay? So that's the idea behind it. It's all to create merit. And then you can dedicate that. Like if you have problems, you might request a Tara puja and then make offerings for it, and then ask the monastics and then yourself dedicate it for, the elimination of whatever interferences you're having. Or if somebody has died, you request pujas. You request them to recite the King of Prayers, or to do the Sok Puja. And so if the community does it together, people have usually made an offering when they request that. Here, because people in the West don't know, we do whatever they request anyway, whether or not they make the offering. But one day maybe they'll learn about that. In any case, these offerings that we receive, if we receive them, if somebody requests the prayers and pujas and makes offering, we should definitely do them. We shouldn't turn around and give those offerings away to somebody else, or just keep the offerings without doing the prayers and pujas that these people requested us to do. And similarly, when people give us faith offerings, because they have faith, like I was saying, we shouldn't just throw the money around, but we shouldn't turn and just kind of give it away to lay people or give it away to our family, because those offerings were not intended for those people. They were intended for us, and often they're connected with the request for prayers or pujas. So we have to honor that. Okay, then the question comes, well, sometimes people give you many things with an attitude of faith, but you can't use them all, or whatever. So does that mean that you can't give them away? Okay, you can give them away, but you have to give them away appropriately. Okay, and the reason I say this is because it happens in the Tibetan community sometimes that if somebody has a relative who is a Geshe or a High Lama or an abbot or somebody like that, those people tend to receive a lot of offerings. And sometimes the family expects their monk relative to give them offerings and support the family. This is not proper. This is not suitable. Okay? We don't have this expectation from our families, thank goodness, nor do we have the ability to fulfill that expectation if they had it. But in the Tibetan community, this can really happen. And there's a lot of pressure. It could be a lot of pressure from the families or from the friends. You know, oh, you receive so many offerings, you know, come on, share some of them with us, you know. But they shouldn't be used in that way because they were given with faith to the monastic, who was the abbot or Rinpoche or Geshe or teacher or lama or whoever it was. Okay? And so if you have those kinds of offerings, you can give them away, but you should give them away in a Dharma sense. Okay? So if you can't use them yourself, you give them to the community. You know, that's why we have a policy here at the Abbey that whatever offerings we receive as a representative of the community goes back to the community. So when we're teaching or things like that, it all goes into the community. Or sometimes if you have things like that, you can give them to another Dharma community or to a practitioner who wants to do retreat or to buy Dharma books or something like that. But you use it in an appropriate way, okay? Not just to friends and relatives out of attachment for friends and relatives. And so that's why I was saying here the other day that sometimes when we have extra food, then we share it with the Catholic nuns or we give it to the food bank. We've given food to the Shasta Abbey and to the Portland Buddhist Priory or with other Dharma practitioners. So you share things like this. I remember when I was in Mexico, I think it was right after you had left, several people came for interviews and I got one box of cookies that was like this, and then another thing of cookies, and another thing of cookies. And so I put one thing of cookies downstairs, you know, to share with the people in the center. And then I told them to take the other box to the talk that I was giving that night and share it with the people in the talk. But they forgot to do that. So then I told them when I saw the box, I said, now be sure and give it to, you know, an organization that gives food for the people who don't have food. So I hope they did that, you know. So it's this kind of thing. You use it in a wise way, okay? So I wanted to tell you a little story that I started to tell you yesterday about Lama Zopa in this regard. Okay, I usually tell this story in the sense of when you give an offering, it is no longer yours, and so you should give up attachment to how the person uses it. But now I'm telling the story in the sense of when you receive an offering given by faith, you should give it to somebody else who is worthy of faith. Okay? So, many years ago, I wanted to give Rinpoche an offering, and so I got some brocade from MacLeod Ganj. I was living in India at the time, and so I hand-sewed some book covers made of brocade for Rinpoche. 2 of them, maybe 3 of them, something like that. Hand-sewed, not with a machine. Hand-sewed. And so I remember one day, you know, I finally was able to go see Rinpoche, and I brought them in and offered them to him. And I was really happy to give them because in my mind they were a very beautiful offering. They were also something that was functional. I like to give functional things. And so I gave them. And then, you know, I had my interview and I left. And then Geshe Wangdu Yeah, that was his name, Geshe Wangdu. He came to see Rinpoche, and when he left, I noticed he was carrying the book covers that I had given to Rinpoche. So that's why I say I usually tell this story in terms of when you make an offering, don't have attachment afterwards, because you offered it, it's no longer yours. But you see, he did give it to somebody else who was worthy of making offering to. Yeah, and so he used it wisely. So that's also a good example to us of, for that kind of thing.